Morning, everybody. It's Nick Pendracost here from Clarity Kent Counselling, your menopause therapist. I don't think it's too late to say Happy New Year because we haven't spoken since before Christmas. So Happy New Year, albeit we're on the 26th of January, but I think I can get away with it. So I wanted to jump on today for January and talk about something called our energy budget in midlife. Um, you might be thinking, crikey, Nick, what is one of those for us in midlife? And you may well be feeling like I often do, tired all the time, or TAT as it's called, with the abbreviation. So, looking back, you may be feeling like I did to a point that we've survived the stress of Christmas. And you may have found the time to steal yourself a bit of rest. And quite often, there's that sense of expectations that we've got to sort of rev up again for January, when there's probably very little in the tank. I don't know about you, but gone are the days when I'm into goals and resolutions. And I've kind of stopped doing that some while back. And just recently, I was listening. You may have come across the poet Donna Ashworth. I think she's around 50 now, and she was talking to Nat Cassidy on her on her podcast. Which was really interesting. She was talking about, I no longer do resolutions and goals, but I'm now a proud owner of her journal called Words to Live By. You might think, well, I've left it too late, to start in January, but never too late, because it's a lovely book with some of her poems at the front. And the nice thing is, there's no month as such, there's just sort of days of the month. So you can pick it up, whenever. So energy budgets, how to conserve them and how to top them up. Now, I personally are becoming more and more attuned to this, because last summer, which is about 6 to 9 months ago now, I had a diagnosis of something called MCAD or MCAS, which in full is mast cell activation syndrome, or as described by my very kind and gentle endocrinologist, reminding me that this is an invisible illness, but it is in fact a chronic illness. So I very much, and particularly in midlife as well, albeit postmenopausal, the same applies. I have to be attuned to what's in my budget. And I have to say, mentioning that to me did sort of cut through my heart like a knife. But at the same time, there was that kind and compassionate voice that I'm hearing more and more now that says, Nick, you've got to slow down. You've got to pace yourself. Or otherwise, as we often find in midlife, we're oscillating in that sort of boom and bust scenario. Crikey, I've got the energy, I've got to use it. And then invariably we bust. We maybe fall over a couple of, not literally, but metaphorically speaking, emotionally, we fall over a few hours later, or quite often for me, the next day. Now, I'm sure you've been there and experienced that, and not necessarily with an illness or an autoimmune condition. Yeah, it is important that we manage the energy budget. And if you do have an autoimmune condition or a chronic illness, like I do, it's recognizing that the tank won't be as full from a standing start than someone else without that condition or illness in midlife. So how does the energy budget work? And how do we look after it? How do we tend to it? So I think there's also something here about, I don't know about you, is for quite some time in my 40s, less so now, I was kind of stuck on repeat going, well, I know I'm mid 40s, late 40s, in my 50s, but I kept saying to people, oh, I'm 35 at heart, which I kind of was. But I now recognize more and more that it's okay to say that, but actually I don't have the energy levels of who I was in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s. So how do we look after the energy budget? Firstly, we need to see our energy as our body's currency. And with that, we need to learn to budget for that energy. So firstly, being mindful of making regular deposits, if you like, each day to restore our energy, kind of top up the tank. And we do know that, and that makes common sense. And the sort of relative analogies is, we wouldn't try and drive our car on fumes or no petrol, and neither would we let, our battery go flat on our mobile phone. So we need to invest in activities and people that are going to generate energy, or if you like, in a sort of financial analogy, pay dividends in both the short and the long term. So it's important that you identify your energy save mode and use it regularly. Track your energy spend, so to speak, to avoid it going into red, as I mentioned earlier, with the no petrol in the tank or a flat mobile battery. And watch out for any red flags. So that are things that we know that can drain our energy and our budget. So we know that things that get in the way are sort of lifestyle choices or transitions, particularly in midlife. There's a lot of living loss and grief going on. So changing roles, moving house, relationship endings, or other life events such as grief, losing somebody close to us, looking after aging parents. It can all send our energy levels fluctuating and waxing and waning. So they feel like they can be all over the place. And that's when we're at the possible risk of this, what we call this energy bankruptcy or burnout. So they can take a toll on our physical as well as our mental energy. But it's important to acknowledge these influences in the first instance, which is that first step towards safekeeping our energy and preserving, if you like, our overall health and what's in the tank. And as I said before, if you're listening to this and you can relate, as I have been candid with my personal experiences, it's recognizing if you do have an illness or an autoimmune condition, it's worth remembering that we are, our energy, what's already in the tank is sort of depleted and it's not as high. And we need to really caretake that and recognize that and look after it. So let's think assets and debits or debts. Identify activities for you, and it's going to be different from person to person, that recharge your batteries. So energy in and daily deposits. So importantly, we often lose sight of this in midlife, still try and burn the candle at both ends, so to speak. It's important to prioritize quality sleep. We know fuel our body with nutritious foods, find enjoyable activities and move. Meaningful relationships are important too for connection. As I like to call it, find your tribe. And, our tribe does change as we get into our 40s and 50s in midlife. Your support network is important, which is part of your tribe. Family, friends, all important for connection. Find your safe mode as well. So it's important to schedule regular periods of rest and relaxation, and or delegate tasks or outsource responsibilities, maybe in the home, to lighten your load, and professionally too. Energy out, so keep an eye out for how you're expending your energy, such as work, caring for family and aging parents, comfort eating, we all do it from time to time, sedentary lifestyle, exceeding our alcohol consumption. Bear in mind your energy debts or debtors, the source of stress and energy drains, overworking, which I quite often do, all too often, damaging relationships, lack of hobbies, and self-criticism. But short-term investments could be meditation, mindfulness. I'm making a point of doing this more and more than I've ever done. And to be honest, to coin the analogy, it really is paying dividends. Breath work, similarly, gratitude diary, engaging in recreational activities that bring you joy, pursuing hobbies for fulfillment or mastery, a new hobby, learning a new language. Long term, maybe think about supporting causes that you're passionate about. I'm now thinking of volunteering and supporting the MCAS org group, action group, moving forward. Investing time with family and friends and colleagues committing to learning new skills. I'm thinking of taking up a new foreign language because I did languages at university, so maybe Spanish, or reinvigorating my conversational German. And getting involved in new interests and building connection with others is so important. As we know, what we don't want to do, and we often do, is languish in midlife. And finally, let's watch out for those red flags. We often talk about those in relationships, and a kind of this applies too, but we all do it from time to time. The mindless social media scrolling, on Facebook, on Instagram, and with the news. Being in toxic relationships, and by that I mean is just relationships that we're aware that we like to be in, but they can at times just drain that energy battery. And then being aware of excessive engagement in the activities, whether it's work, socializing, hobbies, and avoiding the over-exercising too. So really pacing ourselves so we don't move into boom. Don't go from boom or bust. So that's it from me today. Please do check out my website for the Embers quiz. I've changed my, if you like, pop-up freebie on my website, so you can do the Embers quiz and see where you are with perimenopause and your symptoms. And as I've always mentioned, if you'd like to work with me, I do work with the Embers model, which is a menopause informed psychological care framework that really helps educate, validate, and empower us women to implement strategies to regain control over our life, our body, and our mind during that perimenopause, menopause transition, and beyond. So it's a really comprehensive therapeutic approach, integrating an understanding of both physiological, emotional, and psychological changes us ladies experience during perimenopause, whilst also, as I mentioned, considering the broader context of our lives. Busy time for us, aging parents, poorly parents, looking after kids, kids going off to uni, busy professional lives too. But this approach not only addresses the symptoms, which we're all too often drawn towards, but it also considers other factors such as our physical and mental health status, our relationships, our work, and our life strategies, and where we want to go now with our passion and purpose in midlife. So if you are interested, do DM me, on LinkedIn, that's absolutely fine, or through Facebook, or through Instagram. I'm very happy to have a 20-minute free introductory Zoom call. Bye for now.